Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Let's Make Work Happen. I'm Jennifer Connell, Vice President of Advisory Services at Weichert Workforce Mobility. And today I'm proud to be joined by my guest, Lindsey Sells, Relocation Specialist at AutoZone. Hi, Lindsey.
Hey, Jennifer, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here today and to talk to you a little bit about your company and your mobility program and how you work with your employees. So I want to start with a little bit of a fun fact. People may know AutoZone for their many, many store locations. My understanding is there's 7,000 of them, give or take a few, and their famous NASCAR sponsorship. I have three boys myself, so I grew up with many, many little toy cars with your logo on them. But I just learned that AutoZone was not the original name of the company.
No, it wasn't. It was actually Auto Shack. That's what it started as. And in about 1987 is when they officially changed the name to AutoZone.
Very interesting, because there are a few, I'm not going to name them, but when I was growing up, there were a few other store names that had Shack in the name. So I personally, I like AutoZone. I like that. So tell us a little bit about AutoZone's employees. Are employees, in fact, called AutoZoners? I love that.
They are AutoZoners, sometimes zoners for short.
That's great. So what type of talent is AutoZone looking for in AutoZoners? And who are the employees that are typically being relocated?
Well, when our talent acquisition team is recruiting, they are looking for candidates that not only fit the requirements of the role, but, are they a good cultural fit for the company? We do have a very strong culture, I like to call it. And that is one thing that really sets us apart from some of our competitors and other companies. And our CEO, Bill Rhodes, always says, not everyone is for AutoZone, and AutoZone is not for everyone. So, our TA team is really looking for an individual that values that team type building and values community. And AutoZoners, we're always looking for ways just to go the extra mile for each other, for our internal customers and for customers out in the field, right, at our stores. As far as a relocation population, we do have a diverse population that relocates. So we start from store managers. We have the district managers, the commercial side of the business as well. Up to senior vice presidents that relocate into our store support center here in Memphis, Tennessee. And our largest company population is out in the field, where they're taking care of our customers through the stores and our distribution centers. And that's where the heaviest relocation volume lies as well, is out in the field.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, I would certainly encourage people to go to the website. I mean, you get a very healthy perspective on the culture of AutoZone when you kind of take a look at the history there. I'm sorry, Lindsey, I have to call you out on a pun when I see it, because I do love a good pun when you said you have to go the extra mile.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's part of our
And you do bring
there.
an interesting perspective, because I learned that you have been on the RMC side before joining AutoZone, correct?
Yes.
And now you're on the corporate side. So can you tell me a little bit about both roles and how that's worked for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I really am proud of that. The first part of my career working as a consultant or counselor on the relocation management side. So I was a consultant for about 11 years on the operations team. And, consultants have to deal with a lot. They have to, balance their client policies and trying to be an expert in all their different client policies, right? But they also have to deal with the emotional aspect of what the transferees are going through. So it's so important that they have that want, and that drive to connect with their transferees, because it's important to be able to, create that rapport with them and know that you're an advocate for them and that you're there for them going throughout the process. I started as a consultant in about 2008. And that, as you know, that was when the economy was kind of tanking, right? So it was a very difficult time to be a consultant. And, if I didn't have a backbone when I started that position, I sure did by the time the market bounced back. So I think it really helps me relate well with our counseling team to know, what they're going through. And luckily, I have a great, counseling team that I can depend on. So I would say, being a consultant and, going through those tough times, it really did inspire me to create a passion in the relocation industry, to want to be there for people. And I really got joy out of seeing them successfully make it to the new location. We're going to have our, ups and downs, but eventually we get there. And then our, work on the corporate side, I absolutely love it. I think it has a big part to do because I used to be a counselor and I know what a lot of the transferees go through, from working with them, right? So I do love what I do. I love the company. That helps as well. And, having that strong culture as well. But I do think that, having that background has really allowed me to, excel in creating a solid foundation for the relocation program. Whenever I first started at AutoZone 5 years ago, they did have some areas of opportunity. And I really feel like, my background was able to contribute to a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, you've had that firsthand experience. We talk so often in mobility about the employee experience in the past few years, and you've been on the front lines learning it. A lot has happened to us in the past couple of years. Can you talk to us a little bit about the role of mobility? How has that changed for you over the past couple of years?
Yeah, I would say that, I sit on some mobility calls a couple of times during the month, and I can see it from other companies as well. I feel that there is a bigger sense of global outlook or perspective from companies. And, once the work from home model really started up, it did require for most businesses to really have that global perspective because they had to start coming up with policies and processes to make sure that they were compliant while people were not in the office. So I think that became a big piece for recruiting talent is to start really being a little more flexible and understanding that from a recruiting perspective there's a lot of talent out there. And let's start looking at mobility as more of a benefit to relocate talent where it needs to be instead of an obstacle.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit of a multiple choice question here. Which of the following do you think is most important when it comes to creating a great employee experience? Do you feel that it's the relocation benefits, communication, the technology, and integrated technology, if you will, or a strategic counseling or the counselor? And I know that there are all of the above, but is there one at least
Yeah.
lately that seems to kind of pop out for you?
I would definitely say out of those options, a great counselor makes all the difference. When you have a strategic counselor that knows how to communicate effectively and convey a lot of benefits to them, really work the benefits a way that the transferee can utilize them in the best way that works for their situation, that's what you need, right? Push it all the way so you don't have to really request for an exception, but how can you make it work for them?
Mhm.
So, and even if you did have all those great things, the great benefits and the communication technology, if you don't have a good counselor and don't know how to really, utilize those, then it negates all those other features. So,
That makes sense to me. And what part of a move do you feel that your employees are most concerned with, where the employee experience is at risk? Is it kind of the beginning? Is it at the end when they're settling in, or is it in the middle when they're kind of en route?
I would say definitely at the beginning because or the middle. There's so many different things and you have so many different people, right? But I feel like the home sell piece is a big one. The type of benefit that they could get like skeptical about, especially if they haven't gone through the home sell program. They're a little worried about that. And so it helps for me to have the background because whenever they call me, being able to tell them how the process works a little bit more or having the counselors that have that background as well and know that they can help educate their agents. That's very important because I think sometimes they don't know if everybody else is okay with it as well. So to let them know that, their agent has that experience as well, I think it really helps them kind of settle down and hand the reins over to us, right? It's all about letting go of the control and giving it to somebody else.
So true. It's hard to that letting go, right? Because employees, they
Yes,
really want to have some of that ownership and engagement in the process, and we want to be able to
right,
give them some of that, the right amount of hand holding, but
right.
some of that
Especially when it
ownership as
comes to
well.
your house, or
Yeah.
your household goods, like that can get a little emotional for them.
So you've been doing this for a while. Do you have any stories that you can share with us about how mobility made an impact?
Yes, a lot of stories come to mind. But I would definitely have to say here recently, our company, AutoZone, came up with a development kind of program for some people, our zoners out in the field. And there were some that worked at the stores and our distribution centers. And about 20 of them that we are relocating to the store support center, and they went through a 12-week technical course, and fortunately they all passed, and we're able to relocate them and really give them, it's a changing event for them. They are really, really excited about this opportunity, and so we're excited for them.
That's great. That means a lot. So before we close out, I would like to ask, what piece of advice would you give to somebody who is new to the mobility industry to ensure that the employee experience is top of mind for them?
I don't know if people understand how life changing it is for someone to go through a relocation. It's very, very stressful. So I'd probably share the statistic with them that relocation is one of the top three most stressful events that someone can go through throughout their lifetime. It is right up there with the loss of a loved one and going through a divorce. They are having to pack up their whole life and their family and move churches and schools and everything. So I think if you can put that behind them and let them know that, they're going to be a little more receiving of some of the ups and downs that the transferee goes through, and walk with them, be there as their advocate, and walk them throughout the process.
Isn't that amazing? And that has been the same statistic that has been in place, I think, for years and years and years. It never
Yes.
changes. It never gets old. That's a great piece of advice. Thank you. So last question, we ask this on every one of these videos. Before we
Okay.
go, how do you, Lindsey, make work happen?
I think you have to find something that you love. And, mine is being able to ultimately build a program for someone that can get through a relocation process seamless and have that a sustainable program that can last, as your company grows and grows. So once you find that and having that work-life balance, I think that's so important. If your mental part isn't in check, then you're not going to be happy doing what you love, right? And we need to remember that we work to live. We don't live just to work. So always keep that in mind and enjoy your work-life balance.
That is great. Well, thank you very much, Lindsey. I appreciate your time. Given such great advice. Thank you. And I look forward to continuing the conversation. And
Right.
until next time.